Welcome, welcome everyone. It is so good to be here with you. My name's Bethan, and I have some of the International Nature Journaling Week team here. I've got Melinda Nakagawa and Karina Badar. Hello. So, Karina and myself are going to step aside in a minute and we're going to let Melinda do her magic. But we'll be in the chat if you need help. And yeah, we are here today to talk about describing the indescribable. And Melinda is such a heart-led, amazing person to lead us through this because it's just her kind of thing. So thank you so much for being here and thank you, Melinda.
All right, thank you, Bethan. Oh, we've got people from all over the United States. I see Canada, Tasmania, Australia. Welcome, welcome. And if you're just joining in, please feel free to put in the chat where you are joining us from. It's lovely to go and see what parts of the world we're connecting at this hour. I know this is not um, awake time for everyone in the planet, but what's so special about our International Nature Journaling Week is that we rotate the times each day so that we're catching different parts of the world live. Um, all right, so my name is Melinda Nakagawa and of Spark in Nature, and I'm part of the International Nature Journaling team. This whole crazy idea was birthed by Beth and Burton about celebrating nature journaling from June 1st to June 7th. And we're kicking off the first day of our theme for the year of conversations with nature that I'm super excited about. And today we're talking about describing the indescribable. And as you may already know, you can go to the website to check out all the different topics for each day. So today I thought we'd talk about what do I mean by describing the indescribable? Um, Hold on one second here. If I can find my window. Here it is. Okay. So, what we were thinking of indescribable as those moments when you're out in nature and you experience something that leaves you totally speechless or breathless, or something just knocks your socks off because you're like, this is so crazy cool. Or maybe you're moved to tears, tears of joy, tears of grief and sadness. Or maybe you just feel so connected to something. And I wonder if, as I'm talking about this, does something in your mind pop up about something that's indescribable to you that you've encountered in nature? So I'm going to give a moment for you to just think, what has been indescribable to you? And maybe in the chat, you can type a few words, like a short description of like an encounter of something that's indescribable. And I would love to hear what everyone is experiencing. So I'm seeing being face to face with a hummingbird. Oh, in a small boat next to a humpback whale. It's coming in pretty fast here. Bethan, you want to help me read some of these off? A Luna
Oh,
moth I saw.
a soaring albatross. Oh, there's so many beautiful ones. Seeds germinating. I feel that too. Have you had that feeling like, what is this miracle happening?
Yes. Oh wait, I just saw deep space through the Hubble telescope. Yeah, I've seen some video footage of that. It's amazing.
200 days.
Cactus blooming. Perfume of plants, wet earth, night sky. Describing a flavor of an exotic fruit. Yeah. Immersed in bird song. Oh wow, this is really great. And if you wanted to save the chat and go through some of these amazing, thoughts, you can do that too by clicking on I think it's oops, my chat just
I
went
can
away.
upload the chat to the website.
Yeah, yeah. And then you can read, what are some other amazing, breathless, indescribable things that people are encountering. And maybe you can go, look for that if you feel like you're have a little dearth of indescribable. This is amazing. Yeah. So with these indescribable things, how many of you are putting these in your nature journal, like writing about it or expressing that indescribable part of that experience? Um, Type a yes if like a Y in the chat if you have been. All right, we've got 200 people with us today. Yeah, let's just type a Y if you have been putting these indescribable aspects of your connection with nature. Okay, some people are new to all this. No, some no's, sometimes. We got a lot of yeses though. That's great. And so if you haven't really thought about putting this in a journal yet, that's okay because today you can start in on the conversation with us about how can we put these experiences into our journal. Okay, looking for inspiration. I wish I could just started my journal. Not yet, sometimes. Okay, great, great. Okay, it's helpful for me to hear um, what the experience is so far. Okay. So, with our journal, we can touch these experiences, these wordless, invisible, unseen experiences, right, that are hard to put on paper, right? We're used to like maybe writing words or like drawing something, but how do you put that into your journal? And, some of you might encounter nature journaling as really just drawing the thing and describing it and maybe even going more scientific and measuring or more artistic and like, making it accurate or making it beautiful. But I'm going to invite you to see your journal as a place where you can put your conversations in. And, I think of my journal as a place where the communication that I have with nature, the conversations that I have with nature, I think of my journal as scratch paper for the in the moment scribbling. Right. So I like to tell the people that come to my classes, I think of my journal as, maybe you've taken a math test before in school and where you're given a neat piece of paper where you have to write the answer very neatly, but you also get another piece of paper that's blank that you can scribble all over and you can do your calculations, right? I think of my nature journal as that scratch paper. So I just create that intention in my mind and say, I'm going to allow whatever wants to hit the paper to be here regardless of the format or whether it looks good or if it's neat handwriting or spelled correctly. Because when I can do that, then I open it and I can just catch, it's like a basket to catch all of that cool stuff that nature is showing me. So I'm going to invite you to experiment and, feel free to use your journal page or your whole journal as a place to experiment with nature. Okay. Um, let's see. So how can we describe the indescribable in our journal? Maybe you've thought about that after you signed up and said, how would I do that? Well, I'm going to share some images from my journal, if I can find the right slides here. Okay, and I'll share my screen. Okay, so hopefully you are able to see. Okay, let me advance. All right, so conversations with nature. So I'm going to share you just a few pages that I've done that are not what you might consider like, um, the traditional kind of nature journaling where you're drawing a picture of something and describing it. Um, I have a background in science. I'll just preface, I have a background in science, and I can naturally tend to want to collect data, right? Like measuring things, writing things down, the names of things, and, the accuracy. That's really exciting to me. I like that. I like to learn more about the plants and animals and learn the name. But what I've been stretching myself more to do in the last several years, and I think I just feel it from inside. There's something inside me that wants me to set aside the data collection and approach nature through the heart. And so I'm going to share some pages with you that are from that kind of realm. So, the way that I teach nature journaling is a combination of science, nature, art, and heart. And my process is I call spark journaling because I wait for that spark of inspiration from nature and I lean in and I explore, find those connections, and allow whatever communication comes through. It might be an inspiration, it might be a memory, it might be a feeling or an emotion. And so on this day, I typically when I go out in the morning and I make lists of lists of birds. I think this one. Here we go, something like this. I would go out and I sit. I got my morning bird list, and then I listen for the birds. And I'm a longtime birder, so I kind of can recognize by sound. And so I'll make a list of all these birds, which is good too. It's feeding that part of me that wants to understand who's in my yard and how these birds change over time. But on this particular day, I just kept hearing just to see beyond the bird, and like put the pen down, stop collecting data. And so I'd started on a new page and I sat and I just listened. And I used instead of my on my regular fountain pen, I used a colored pencil, and I just started making marks of the way the sounds of the birds made me feel. And so these swirls and marks were the ways that I felt. And I took watercolor and made swooshes and just picked random colors or colors that like felt like that sound of the bird. And then I went through and then started to write, because I couldn't help myself. I just wanted to write the bird songs, and who was singing. And then this message came through to me that I had an awareness of these words. And so I wrote them in through this page. Let the river of song move through you. Listen with an open heart and a quiet mind. Be in this moment and listen beyond the birds. So there's more, but that, you get the idea. This is not typically what, we might think of putting in nature journaling, and maybe some of you already do, right? I had a very deep science training. So for me, it's like loosening that rigidness and allowing something beautiful to come through. And it doesn't mean one is better than the other. We can have both, but I get to choose how I want to use my nature journal. So that's just one example. Here's another page of the feeling of bird song. So this is an evening bird chorus. And I decided to draw the scribbles of the sounds of the birds across my page. And, no one's going to know what kind of bird they were or what it sounded like, but this is for me. This is what I felt. And I think this is what nature invites us to swim in, is the feeling and the emotion of nature. So this is it was nighttime, so I decided to do some dark colors, and I'm a musician, so I thought it would be fun to make the B into a bass clef. So it's kind of like a bass clef or bird clef evening chorus. So being playful and creative and having fun with communicating with nature, I think is where I'm wanting to spend more time. This is another image that I had when I was listening to my morning bird chorus. They were quiet at first. It was dark and a few birds were singing, and gradually more and more birds joined in the chorus. And so it felt like this big spiral and, growing, like the sounds were growing and so many birds were in the chorus. So this is just a visual of what I was feeling in the morning bird chorus. So sometimes there's a sense of awe, right? Like a sunset. This sunset was in where I was driving home. I had to pull over the highway because if I drove all the way home, the sun would have gone down. And so I stopped. Stopped in a parking lot. I got out. I always have my nature journal with me, and actually, I stood there with my mouth hanging open and just stood at the open sky and was taking in all the colors. And there were hundreds of birds flying. This is near the ocean, flying back to land from the ocean. And so I just splashed on color. It's not the purpose was not to make a photographic representation of what I saw that day, but really to capture the feeling of it. And when I spend time with nature in this way, I'm going to remember this for much longer. So even looking at this page, it's not the same as the experience, but it brings me back to that moment. And so by putting in your journal whatever you can, it doesn't need to be the realistic version of what you see, but using words and sketching and scribbling and marks and colors, you can etch that memory into your brain in a way that is nourishing and that won't disappear. Oh, and then this is what I've decided to do on these pages where I have a spread of just color. Instead of writing all over it, I've decided to use this is what is it called? Tracing paper. And so I have sheets of tracing paper in my journal for different kinds of things. But on this day, I wrote my impressions of like what I was feeling in that moment. And then I just taped it over so that I can still have the memory, but I can still flip the page up and I can see the full spread. So you can have the art and you can also have the conversation. Sometimes conversation is about grief, and I think that this helps one to process the thing that's going on. This is my next door neighbor's cypress tree that was getting cut down. I looked out the window, and there were three men hanging from the tree with chainsaws, and they were buzzing, and it, it was really emotional for me. I stood and watched, and I took pictures as the tree was being cut into pieces. And you don't see on the other page, but it was a conversation I was having with Cypress, and I was just, tuning in and saying how deeply sorry I felt and asking her if she was okay. And I realized that there was not one tree, but two trees. And the message I got from the Cypress is it's okay, right? That they're not disappearing. They're just transforming into something else. They're not trees anymore, but they will nourish the ground. And so, basically a message like that about cycles. And the message I take home from that is, nothing, there is no end. Everything is always continuing on to something else. Same with this forest, this clear-cut forest. It was heartbreaking for me to see it. I'm not sure why it was cut in that fashion, but I did the same thing, taking time to like really notice the landscape, honoring the space, writing my feelings and connecting. And then I realized on the other side of the field was a whole forest of baby trees that were coming up. And so this was the sadness of the clear cut, but there was hope of this stand of baby trees. And so I think that nature invites us to bring these ideas into our own lives. So where in my life do I feel sadness and grief, and how can I look for the hope that is also right beside it? Another example of trees that were burned. I drove by this forest and something made me want to pull over. And so I was with some friends. They pulled the car over. I got out and I sketched this because I found such beauty in the branches that were burned and curving down. And I was drawn to it. So I always stop. If something in nature calls to me, even if it is something that is kind of sad, I know I'm being called to being invited into a conversation, I suppose. That's what I want to say. Um, and what came from this is the burnout. I was thinking, oh my gosh, in my life I feel I'm reaching burnout. I'm doing so many things, I'm juggling so many things. This burned forest is showing me, Melinda, take care of yourself so you don't get burned out. So, these messages are different for each of us. We could all stand in the same forest and receive something else. A message could be from a flower in your garden. This is Cosmos that had these, dead flowers and, different ranges. And I love doing contour drawing. So I did that and then, asked the flower some questions and just wrote the impressions that I got from it. It's, another way of conversation. Sometimes it's just like such awe-inspiring that I just want to capture all the colors. So you've probably all been someplace where there's so many colors that like light you up and you don't even know where to begin. I decided that I would just have fun with my palette and mix up all these colors. And I don't know if they're exactly the color I saw, but I was just playing, like being in playful joy with the fall color. And so this is another way that I tune into, the indescribable and just have fun. again, colors, um, spraying with so many different shades of green, just having fun with playing. And this is actually a really great practice for color mixing. And I know Bethan is always talks about matching colors and color mixing, and this can help you understand, how colors are made too by exploring. And then poetry, in the center, I just wrote a quick poem. So connecting with conversation can be with snippets. So this is a walk that I did on the beach. And this walk was this is where I started, and I made these little squares that went across. I think they were mostly in order. And so as I was encountering different things, like nature was pointing things out, I did a quick little tiny thumbnail sketch. And so this is like the conversation that I had with nature on this particular day. And I sat down later and just decided from my memory what colors did I see, and then made this little palette over here. All right, and some more exploration with nature is I took river water and painted across. Actually, what I did is shadow drawing. So I saw these beautiful shadows cast on the ground and put my journal underneath and took a colored pencil and traced the shadows so that it's kind of like co-creating with nature, right? With the wind and the sun and the shadow and the plants and just having fun with the shapes. And I feel like when I do shadows, I'm less focused on the perfection of drawing because the shadows are moving and my journal's moving and I can't get it exact. So, and having it wobbly is it's okay. Here's another shadow drawing with the wind was blowing and moving them around. And these were weeds. A lot of them were weeds. And so they were just drawing um, attention to what weeds are. Like I discovered the extraordinary beauty in weeds, right, through this process. So having a playful experience with your journal and experimenting. And here's one more recently. I decided, so I think in having an intention for your page is really helpful. Especially if you really like to do like beautiful, more illustrations, along in your journal as well as kind of something scribbly. I prefer to do mostly scribbly just because that's what I like. But if you go into it and say, hey, I'm going to give myself permission to be messy and scribble, then I think it's going to be easier for you to do that. So this day I decided I'm going to go and I'm going to look for the plants that are kind of weedy, that most people just walk by, but ones that I already know have some kind of edible or healing quality. And I walked through and just did scribbles as I was encountering them. And this violet caught my attention and it wanted to go on the page here. And I'm like, no, I'm sorry. I'm actually drawing, medicinal plants here. I don't think you're medicinal. But the violet said, like, draw me here. And so I drew it here. And when I went home and looked it up later, I found that violet was edible. The Native Americans here ate violets, the flowers and the leaves. And then it did have some nourishing components to it. So in that example, Violet was speaking to me and you could say, was like really calling out to me, I belong on this page. And I'm grateful that I listened, and put that in there. So I think that might be, oh, maybe a couple more. Yeah, this is poetry. You can have fun with adding color. So, it's not just words. And this one was the other day. The seaweeds that were, I was just really delighted to find all kinds of seaweeds on the beach the other day. And I wasn't intending to nature journal, and I was just collecting little bits of seaweed. And I thought, okay, that's it. I have to sit down. And I sat down because I wasn't going to take the, stinky seaweed home because, I wasn't going to be able to do something with it. So I thought I need to do it right now. So I did some contour drawing and it was really fun. And, the message was, wandering among the seaweeds, nature's art, showing me that beauty and awe can be found at your feet. And I felt like there was a little bit more that I wanted to record on this page, but I felt like I didn't want to draw all over the leaves. So I had a sheet of tracing paper and you could see I'd cut a piece out for some other purpose. But I'm like, it's okay. We're going to put it in here. And then I decided to write over the top of each of the seaweeds what I was noticing and any questions I had. And that way I can still retain, like, if I wanted to just like be immersed in like the beauty of the shapes of the seaweed, I could look at this page and then I can flip down the other page with words and I can add more to it. So I think, yeah, I'm going to stop my share there. Um, we're going to do something, we're going to do some nature journaling together. I'm going to share an image and we'll kind of put pen to paper and practice. I'll show you how I kind of scribble sketch and maybe that's helpful to you. But if there's any questions, I don't know, Bethan, were there any
Melinda,
questions?
there's no questions necessarily, but just a lot of sharing and a lot of love and appreciation for what you're sharing, and just so many different ways to capture nature, not just representing in a scientific way, but just the brilliance of you and the brilliance of what you're sharing and creating is being appreciated in the comments. So thank you, Melinda.
Beautiful, beautiful. I think Bethan and Karina and the rest of the team, Ivea and Jules, we all feel like these are the kinds of conversations that we like to have with nature, and we want to have you join in the conversation and to give you permission, if you need permission, that it's okay to put in your journal these kinds of expressions because this is developing our emotional intelligence, right? Like language, just for us as humans, but also developing this kinship to nature. That it's not just a resource that we're looking at or using, but that we are part of the same fabric with the ferns and the seaweeds and the birds. So allowing yourself, oh, thank you, Karen. I appreciate, yeah. And if this resonates with you, I'm really grateful that you're sharing that. You know, enjoy the rest of the week. You can also connect with me on my website, sparkinature.com. I'll share a link at the end, but let's do some journaling together. Okay. Bethan, is there anything else that you'd like to add here while I'm setting up the camera here?
I think the idea with the tracing paper is so brilliant, and I'm definitely going to borrow that idea. I love that you
Yeah.
are then layering because our experiences are layered, and so you can have the
Yes.
experience of the colors, the experience of the landscape, and then layer on quite literally the experiences of the words and the other things. And yeah, brilliant. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah, I hadn't thought about, yeah, our experiences are layered, definitely layered. Okay, let me see. I'm going to share my desktop here. Okay, you should be able to see. Just let me know if you can't. This photo of some flowers called nasturtiums, and perhaps that's yeah, I tape the tracing paper like on the top edge. I use washi tape and tape it on there. And so that the tape goes on the other side, but my journal is not an art like a museum piece. It's actually a working document, so to speak. So um that's what I do. Okay, so here is the nasturtium. And I think I will. So I'm going to share my screen. This is not like you don't have to copy what I'm doing, but I'm going to be sharing just for those of you who maybe are newer to this and you'd like to see how I'm doing this, you can follow along. So let's imagine that we're walking together in nature. You've come to California. Oh yeah, I'm calling in from Central Coastal California. And right now it is spring, almost moving into summer, and the nasturtiums, it's the height of the nasturtiums right now. I am just really enjoying them. I love their sweet smell, their pepperiness. The leaves and the flowers actually smell different. I don't know if you've noticed this, if you have the nasturtiums. But I made some nasturtium pesto the other day, so I was collecting some leaves, and the leaves, I noticed when I break the stems, they smell differently than the flowers do. So um, give that a try when you're out there. Okay, so today we're describing the indescribable. I like to just put the title of what I'm doing because I'll forget if I don't put the information on there. I always think, oh, I'll put it in later, and no, I don't. So, okay, so we've got describing these describable. So let's say we're walking and we come across these flowers, and maybe something attracts you about it. It could be the leaves, the shape of the leaves of the flowers, or the color. So, yeah, you can go ahead and do your own thing. I'm just gonna talk through how I'm gonna do it today. And, I'm just gonna start sketching maybe some of these happy flowers. So I like to use a contour drawing style. So I'm just looking at the flower, and I kind of like to do like a continuous line because it makes it a little bit messy on purpose, and it keeps my um, inner critic quieter. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come through and do some of these flowers. I think of drawing as a means to help me see better. So when I'm drawing these nasturtiums, I'm looking more closely at the details than I do if I were to, just take a picture and make a mental note and walk away. So I love the shape of these flowers. And I'm not going to get too fussy about did I get that just right. I'm just allowing the lines to be imperfect because no one is measuring. Okay, so, and when you're drawing something into your journal, it doesn't have to be exactly the way you see it. Like I see this cluster of three, and then these two are way up here. I don't have to make that spread. I can put it in wherever I want. Now, if I was doing this scientifically, if I had the intention of like, oh wait, I actually want to analyze, where they're growing, the length, and blah blah blah, then that's a different story. But I feel like just wanting to put a bunch of these nasturtiums on here. And, while you're sketching this, maybe noticing some things about it that you didn't see the first time. Um, I love these leaves. I was nature journaling with some children recently, and when we were looking at these nasturtium leaves, the kindergartners, one child said, "It looks like an explosion." The veins, because we had just looked at a kiwi vine with round leaves, and we were discovering that the veins on the kiwi leaf and the veins on the nasturtium were different. So, yeah, and you don't have to draw everything, just draw what you want to. And I'm going to leave a little space for, maybe some words that I'd like to put in here. So, maybe I'm noticing, this kind of reminds me of what is maybe some of you might know. When I was younger, there was this store that sold odd things, and it was like a magic ball that had electrical electricity coming through, and when you put your hand on the outside of the crystal, it was electricity was coming out like lightning. Yeah, this looks like lightning to me. Like these, like, I don't know if anyone knows what I'm talking about. Plasma ball. Is that what it is? Okay. So I'm gonna put in here, the veins remind me of a plasma ball. Right? Isn't that cool? And yeah, I'm using a fountain pen. This is what I often like to use. Not always, but I like that I have waterproof ink in it, and I use watercolor along with this. So after it gives it a moment to dry, I'll add some watercolor. You could see it smears if it's still wet. So I'm noticing I'm using drawing to tune into these flowers. And maybe you're noticing some things about this. What is this? remind you of? Does it have any characteristics or traits that come to mind? Like, and feel free to, put in the chat if if there's something that comes up as you're doing. I'm feeling really cheerful, when I see this. So I'm gonna put some words. I'm gonna put some words along the side over here. Cheerful. I'm really loving like these wavy lines. I don't know how to describe them. Like, I'm just gonna write it in here. Love the wavy, wobbly stems. I can almost see the flowers like, waving in the wind, like when the breeze comes through. I know what they smell like, so it's, reminding me of their sweet fragrance. I also know, oh, someone says it reminds me of my mom. Yeah, the leaves are like, hi, Christy, like giant lily pads. I know, right? Um, I don't think there's water droplets on here, but if you are, you know, um, able to, well, if you do have nasturtiums and you see the rain droplets or the drops of dew, they're like drops of mercury on them because they bead up. That they have a very interesting surface. So maybe that's it. It's just like a matte surface. Um, there's something about that is important. How do I word this? Um, that it's like Teflon, it doesn't sink in. Like, I'm just gonna write it down. Water doesn't soak into leaves. Beads like Teflon, waterproof. Sunny faces, shady green umbrellas, super hydrophobic. Yeah, water phobic. Not loving, right? So it keeps the water away. Yeah, lines of stems, orange, one of my favorite colors. Peppery flavor. Oh yes, it does have a peppery. The pesto was super peppery. It was really yummy. Peppery, spicy, um, aliveness, joyful, um, dancing. Um, I don't know. I'm imagining like, like joyful children, something like the feeling of joyful children. Let's see, I see colors in similar spectrum, but each color has its own personality. Brash, shy, sophisticated. Oh, I love that. Yes. Poor man's capers, the buds and young fruits. Yes, I haven't tried that yet, but I've heard that. Mystery, what is hiding? Umbrellas for little creatures. Yes, it look like a little forest for little gnomes? So, are there gnomes hiding here, right? Um, so much whimsy here in the chat. Well, you know what? These are whimsical flowers, right? Repels water similar to ladies' mantles. Yeah, I'm sorry if I missed your comment. I'm not unliking yours. I'm just there's so many. I'm not catching them all. Caterpillar food. Yeah, I'm gonna put nourishing because it's edible for humans. Beauty, dress up a salad. Okay, so everyone's going to have different words that come to you, and you can borrow the other words from other people. I feel like the use of language for us is always developing, and so being deliberate with the way that we speak, about nature to others, to ourselves, we can change ourselves, right, through the changing of language. So, if this is like new to you, read through the chat and see if any of these like makes you feel inspired. Leave stems in the middle. like flowers instead of leaves. Oh yeah, they do look like flowers. Yeah, they could look like flowers. What color watercolors used to capture jacaranda? Oh yeah, I love jacaranda. Intertwining. The oh yeah, someone says that they have a love-hate relationship with yeah. I just planted nasturtium in my garden like last year and just starting to grow, and I had enough that I could collect a bunch of leaves, so that's why I made the pesto. But I know some places it's overrun. But how can you look at nasturtium in that way? Maybe nasturtium is prolific, right? And is like I'm going to put that in there here too, is prolific. um what's another word to describe that behavior? Um, I just that word escaped me. Tenacious keeps coming up, so I'm going to put that down. Um, when we are conversing with nature, I try not to filter my words. So sometimes words will pop into my mind. Like this is an example. Tenacious popped into my mind, and I thought, no, tenacious is negative, and I don't want to put that on my journal. And then it kept coming up, tenacious, tenacious. So okay, it's going in my journal. There's something about that word. Um, yes, they can be invasive, right? But what's another word? What you can put invasive? What are some other words? Like something that grows beyond its container, that expands, expansive, right? Rollicking, abundant, there we go. Robust, wild. So if we think of all the different words that we know, overflowing, opportunistic, colonizers, bit of a bully, oh, velvety beauties. Yeah. So yeah, allowing ourselves to expand from what we already know. And when we sit with nature, words will pop up. And so, what is what might this flower be saying to you? And that's another question you can ponder while you're nature journaling. And I'm just going to grab my watercolors. I'm going to add a little bit color. Hopefully there's enough water in here. I think I might have to add some water. Emergency water, water refill here.
Melinda, someone was asking about your pesto, your nasturtium pesto recipe.
Yeah, you can look it up online, but basically, it's like when you make basil pesto. I took about 20 leaves, I rinsed them off, and I put them in a blender with a handful of cashews, a little, I'm vegan, so a vegan Parmesan, um, salt and pepper. There's so many different ways to do it, and you can adjust it to your taste. But basically, you instead of using basil leaves, you use the nasturtium leaves, and you can put in, whatever nuts you want or no nuts. And oh, and olive oil. I didn't have olive oil, so I melted coconut oil and put it in there, and that was fine. But it was such a fun flavor. And so here's another, I know that we're going to talk some more ways of using words later this week, but imagine how would you describe the flavors of things? That might be kind of fun to explore. All right, so here I'm mixing up some color. I actually see kind of a little bit blue, and I am not precise with my color. I just kind of mixed it up. So kind of looks like that, maybe a little bit of blue. And I will just put some green on there. And I do imprecise lines and I do imprecise color. And it's just the way that I choose to add paint on my paper, because when I try to be too precise, I get stuck in my inner critic and she takes over. Her name's Prunella. And then I am not enjoying my process. So I know this is a way that Prunella and I can work together if I just allow myself to be messy. And I'll put I'll just do some other leaves in the background with just the watercolor. And then I'll add some fun color for the nasturtiums, and this is always um, can often don't get the really vibrant yellow, bright oranges, probably because my paint thing is so dirty. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to do this really quickly so you don't have to watch me do this the whole time. Let's get there's some, I'll do some of these lighter yellow ones. They're really pretty. And then there's kind of a golden yellow. There's a little red. Oh, whoops. Oh, I'm making it all dirty. Oh, well. And this one is kind of an orangey. And then this one's got a lot more red. All right, so you see that I'm pretty quick with this. I don't like the purpose for this page is really using the drawing so I can tune in to the flowers, and it helps me slow down because sometimes it's hard for me to slow down, right? I do a lot of nature journaling, and I do take nature wanders, and I can sit and meditate in nature, but sometimes it is difficult to transition. So by drawing, I'm, tuning into nature and allowing myself to, those a few minutes to slow down and come tune in. All right. And that one is kind of a darker. There we go. All right. So we've got, these nasturtiums, and I think I might go and highlight. So you might have a list of words on your paper that nasturtium inspired in your conversation today. Um, you could maybe circle those words or highlight those words. So I think what I'll do is I'm going to look at, oh, sorry if you can't see, some of the words that are here. I don't know, there's something about this water resistant knit, and I don't have quite the right word that's wanting to come through. It's like, oh, what is it? It's kind of like water rolling off a duck's back. Okay, I know what it is. That's what it is. All right, so I'm going to now add some color, um, aliveness, joyful, cheerful. Is playful in here? I just feel like it's also playful. Playful. Everyone is different yet beautiful, equally beautiful. All right. So you might have some other words on your journal. And so I really like this one too. I think what this means to me is don't take things personally. Don't take things personally. Let it roll off. Ah, that's nice. Like water rolling off a duck's back. Don't take things personally, basically, right? What other people say to you, what other people you think are doing to you, or um, any conflicts that you have, how important is it? Let it roll off your back. Enjoy the moment. Find the joy, the aliveness, and the playfulness in your life. This is the message of nasturtium for me here, perhaps for us in this session, but maybe nasturtium has a different message for you. Maybe if you want to share, what was the insight that came to you? Yeah, I also see in the chat, asking about spiritual meanings. So here's my take on it, is that you have a direct connection to nasturtium's spiritual meaning by sitting with nasturtium and tuning in to what words, feelings, memories, those invisible things. What comes to you when you're sitting with nasturtium? That's the meaning. That's the meaning that nasturtium is wanting you to know. So that's the way that I have my conversations with nature. I'd love to hear, how everyone else does it too, because we all have different ways. There's probably as many ways as there are people. So I think with that, I'm going to stop my share. If you liked this process and want to practice more of this process, you can join me online. I have Bethan just put my website in there. If you go to, I'll put another link in here. I am starting um, a it's the sparkinature.com drawn into nature challenge. It's a journey for the month. We're going to be tuning into nature, practicing this nature journaling, but deepening that experience with what is the wisdom that's in nature that's there for us all the time. So that starts in a couple of days, but you can check out that link and check it out. I hope that this was something fun for you to do and inspires you to look more closely with nature. You don't have to do this with everything you journal, but it is something that's available to you that can be very healing. Nature is always communicating with us. It's just we may not always be tuned into the channel, so to speak, right? So slow down, get into nature, bring your journal, allow yourself to scribble and appreciate what nature might have to say. All right, I am going to stop there. I don't know if there's any questions, or Bethan, if you want to add anything to what we did today.
Melinda, that was just so gorgeous. Thank you. There's a lot of appreciation for you in the chat and just such an accessible, this is what I find about your work is that it's so accessible. It's not teaching people to make perfect drawings, although that can be one way of connecting with nature.
Mhm.
Your way
Yeah.
is to like lead or go forward into nature with the heart, and that really it speaks to me, and I can see from the chat that it speaks to a lot of people as well. So
Oh,
thank you
yeah.
so much for your time and for opening up this beautiful beginning to International Nature Journaling Week and the way that we can have conversations with nature. Thank you, Melinda. Thank you, everyone.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know if we have a few minutes for any questions, Bethan. Is that?
Yeah, we can. Yeah. Melinda, do you want to
I know
scour?
that there were a few questions about my fountain pen. If you
Yeah,
go
maybe
to
you
my
can.
website,
Maybe you
yeah,
can
Spark in
discuss
Nature.
your tools for a moment and I'll scour the chat.
Okay. It's a Lamy All-Star. It's the aluminum body. I found that I was using micron pens and I didn't like throwing them away all the time. So this is a way that I can refill with waterproof ink and I don't have to throw anything away. And you can find it on my website. If you go to sparkinature.com and look for I think it's like art tools and supplies, there's a list of some of the common things that I use, like my water brush and like a medium grade journal that you can get to get started. And you can find that information there.
Um, there's a question about how you got started. How did it all begin for you, Melinda?
Oh, well, I've kept a nature journal for like over 25 years, and it was started with just words. I was learning how to identify birds, and I was also a daily nature diary keeper in my journal, and it didn't feel like the birding stuff belonged to my diary, and so that's when I thought I need a different book, and I called it a nature journal. And that has evolved over time. And in the last, 5 years, it's really expanded to become something that is really nourishing for me and really helps me develop a connection to the natural world in a way that, um, helps me tune into living life that's with less stress and less worry because I feel like everything I need comes through what we did today. I could go to the ocean and say, like, what is there for me to know today? Just holding, I could say it out loud or holding that thought, and then I sit and watch the ocean and I might sketch something. And then sometimes the answer to the problem or the question they had just appears. So part of it is just allowing ourselves to slow down, first of all, and then trusting that we don't have to go out to some person or someone else to give us answers all the time, that a lot of times that we already have that wisdom within us. And so that's just a real short nutshell of like where it started and where it ended up. Yeah.
Melinda and I actually did a podcast interview together, and your origin story is in that podcast. I can't,
Oh, that's right.
I don't have it with me right now, but I will, yeah, I can link to it on the
Great.
website. And we actually had the funny experience of realizing that, remember when you talked about studying birds that migrate from my side of the world to your side of the world? That was a pretty nice insight.
Yes, yeah. For graduate school, yeah, I studied a bird that lives half the time in the waters off Australia and New Zealand, and then the other half of the time off the waters of California. It's the sooty shearwater.
Pamela wants to know if you have any books published.
Um, I do have a multi-author book that's published, and it is not nature journaling, but it is about, I have a chapter in it that talks about my nature sit spot practice, and it's called Sacred Self, Everyday Rituals for the Modern Woman. Oh, Bethan has it too. Yeah. Maybe we can put links, into this information later. I am working on a book with my nature journaling um, work that I'm excited to bring that to life, and we'll let you know as soon as that becomes a reality. But yeah, those are the two I've got. Well, one published and one on deck.
Okay,
All right.
we're being asked where it will be on the website. So wherever you found Melinda's workshop description, that's where this video will be. So if you go to the program page on day one, um, um, I will put I'll put this video recording up there. So thank you. I think what we're going to say, Melinda.
And website for describing the indescribable. That's what you were talking about, right?
Where is this info on the website? Yeah, on the International Nature Journaling Week.
Oh, and Evea just popped in the thank you, Evea, the podcast. I'm gonna put it down again on the bottom here, and then everyone can see it if you're interested. Oh, Karina did that. All right.
These beautiful moderators are right on the ball.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
And I'd love to hear, if you want to put in the chat, what message came through for you with
Mm.
nasturtium. Anyone, if you wanted to share, would love to hear.
It's lovely when people talk about nasturtiums and, in fact, anything in nature journaling. It often brings up memories, memories of parents, memories of grandparents, memories of childhood.
Yes. Pamela's asking about I think about the book. Oh, you can buy that on Amazon. I don't have a link on my website. I actually should check it. We were trying to get it into a different publisher so we can have it accessible more, but I think right now it's just on Amazon. Okay. All right. Anyone? Oh, Amy's here. Great. All right. Oh, and the ink that I use is waterproof ink. It's on my website under art tools and supplies. Um, did anyone share what they got through this
Lots of beautiful words, joy, sweetness, giving,
wandering? Go ahead.
no mystery, wanting to explore. They're just such fabulous words.
Oh, hiding in plain sight. That's a great one. What's hiding in plain sight in your life?
Mm.
Right? What's hiding in plain sight? Exuberant. Um, Hold on. Attempting to figure out what to do with excess rather than leaving it Trail. So deer actually, yeah, I think deer like to eat it. Wandering, joyful exuberance. Be joyful. Try new things and places. Oh, I like that. Jean, nasturtium is all about being yourself and having fun. Yeah, now someone wants to plant it in their window box. Yeah, that's great. Mystery, wanting to explore. I get an indescribable joy from the colors in my garden, and to hear that expressed through others is very connecting. Yeah. I think that it's just we are moving into a shift where more people are talking about how nature makes them feel. I think the more people talking about that, it's not weird, it's not cuckoo or whatever, it is really we have spent more time in nature, in humanity. If you go back to the history of how long humans have been on the earth, it's been a very short time period at the end that we've been indoors. So that means that we have an innate connection to nature. And for us to know what plants are edible, which ones are going to be good medicine to stop bleeding or stop, ailments, or which trees are good to build our shelters with. That was information that was in our knowledge that was passed down, and it's kind of dissipated, so we can bring that back. And I think this practice of nature journaling as a tool to help you discover your personal connection with nature. You can also go and learn from others and go online and do all of that too to enhance that, but also know that you have the ability to tune in and bring to life that ability to converse, right? To have become fluent with the language of nature.
Oh,
All
Melinda,
right.
it's been such a joy to connect with this
Yeah, it was
this
fun. It
topic
was
with you.
fun.
You were the exact right person to start off this week. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you
All
everyone for
right.
being here.
Yeah, and please post in the Padlet where whatever pages you have or insights that you have. We'd love to fill up that Padlet. I think the link is on the website on the Nature Journaling website.
Yes, amazing. Thank you, everyone. Take
All
care.
right.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Melinda. See you. Bye.
Hi. Thank you, Bethan. Thank you, Karina and Evea.